All right, everyone, what's up? Episode 9, BBall Pro Insider. You're watching the Candice Wiggins YouTube channel, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Okay, so last night the Toronto Raptors changed everything. And we're going to talk about that, and that's the subject for today. Today's episode is called The Winning Formula. We're going to get into that because it doesn't just apply to the Toronto Raptors last night who upset the Brooklyn Nets on the road, which was a huge swing in the East. First, just a quick reminder of what we do on this show. We are a predictions program. We do daily commentary on the playoff race in the Eastern and Western Conference for the bubble teams. Bubble teams are seeds 5 through 8 and 9 through 12, and it's always changing, always in flux. So we're just here to make predictions. The way we make our predictions is we use the information from yesterday along with what's going on today in order to see what can happen in the future. The reason why we really want to look at the winning formula, as winning games becomes more and more important as the season progresses, we're going to want to identify what some of these formulas are for these teams. And we're going to start with the Toronto Raptors, because the Toronto Raptors found their winning formula. And obviously, it was just one game, but so much can happen from one game, especially at this point in the season where it's still relatively early, where teams can make changes, but a lot of momentum can be built by these teams. So when we talk about the winning formula, we're going to talk about what teams have it and why do they have it? How do they have it? There were 3 winning teams last night, and there was one big winner. And we're going to start with that team, the Toronto Raptors, who have moved up to 7th place in the East. Before the game last night, they were in 10th, and now they've moved all the way up to 7. So you really get an idea of how much one game can really change the whole nature of the way the playoffs look. So in just one game, the Toronto Raptors were able to find a winning formula. Yesterday, I had a question for the Raptors, and the question was, how good are the Raptors really? And the answer to that question is the Raptors are really good, because they beat a really good and talented Brooklyn Nets team on the road, and it was no easy task. There was a protocol with Kevin Durant, so he was in and out of the game and didn't really have the impact that he would usually normally have. But again, this is a no excuses season, and each game is missing players, or things happen and change, and I think that's really what we want to get down to when we break down the winning formula, because a team with a winning formula is able to lose players, are able to not be at full strength necessarily and still find a way to be successful and win. The Raptors really exposed the truth about winning on the road. After watching the game, listening to the game, and really getting an understanding of how the game went, I would say that the biggest thing was the pace, the Raptors' pace, and the transition offense and transition defense. And then also strategy. You could tell they had a lot of strategies, end of quarter, 2-for-1s, and the end of game. They just had really good strategy throughout it all, and efficiency was the word that one of the commentators used. Efficiency. This Raptors team was very efficient, but they're also so experienced. You start to realize how much experience plays in the winning formula. There are also other characteristics of, I believe, a team with a winning formula, and they're just the little things that go unnoticed, but they go noticed once you realize you've won the game. And just, it's just a no-quit attitude, good screens, ball movement, offensive rebounding, and just an overall tenacity. And then, of course, made shots. You have to make baskets at the end of the game, but I believe that the Raptors found the winning formula in the little things. You see them getting those extra possessions from an offensive rebound. They set such solid screens. They know where they're going. They know who's getting the shot. They definitely have an identity, like some of the teams from yesterday's program. But, overall, it's just a body language thing. So when you're watching these teams play today and you're looking for teams with the winning formula, to me, it's really all in the body language. It's all in the posture and the aggression, and I think that the Raptors set that tone very early in that game. So there were other winners last night who had the winning formula. The Suns beat the Pistons 109-92 at home, so they took care of their homework. And the thing to note about the Suns, their winning formula, it all begins and ends with Chris Paul as the conductor of their team, and he's just the operator. He's facilitating, leading, thinking. He's making a lot of, important veteran, mature decisions for the team, and they're really following him in that regard. So I think that that's the Suns' winning formula, and they're continuing to rise. The Suns stay at 6 in the West, which is a really good position for them as they keep trying to climb and just get higher in the standings. It's the Wild Wild West. And finally, another big winner from last night were the Magic, who beat the Bulls 123 to 119. Now, this was what I call a piggyback game, and it is exactly that, as now they have switched seats. So now Orlando's in 11th place and the Bulls are in 12th place. But they're playing again. I believe that the Magic's winning formula was just being aggressive and also being very assertive. I think that this Magic team, they're still in it, but they just have to keep on building and really understanding what their identity is now. Now let's talk about the games for today. There are some very exciting matchups, and we're going to get right to it. So first game up is the Trailblazers versus the Knicks, and they're playing at 1 p.m. So putting this video up in the game before the game starts so you can make sure you catch this game. This Trailblazers-Knicks game, I'm calling it the winning formula game of the day. Okay, because these are two teams that I feel like are definitely on the rise. Right now, Portland is in 5th in the West, and New York is in 8th place in the East. Both of these teams have had a lot of success lately that has lifted them up in the standings. But this game, I think, is going to determine a lot in terms of if they have a winning formula, what that is, and because against each other, they'll be able to really exploit that. I think this is going to be a very exciting matchup. It's at the Knicks, so it's a home court game. So if the Knicks can do their homework, this would really, really help them in their case. And then, of course, Portland, fearless Portland Trailblazers, who just beat Philadelphia on the road. This is a team that I think wants to be taken a lot more seriously, and I think a win on the road at the Knicks would do exactly that. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a really, really good game to sort of spot and see if there is some kind of winning formula. Next are the Nuggets versus the Kings, and I think this is going to be a tough task for Sacramento. It's a home game, so there's still an opportunity for them to do their homework there. But I also think this might be another directional do or die game. Not necessarily if they lose, it's the end of the world, but just they need to evaluate, what kind of team they can be. And in order to rise higher, they're going to have to be beating teams like Denver at home. So I think that it's the Wild Wild West, though. So anything is possible, really, in these games. I think that a win would provide the Sacramento Kings a significant jump to the next tier. And I think tonight will be a test to see if they're ready for that next tier. All right, next we have Bulls Magic. It's a rematch. They just played each other. The Magic beat the Bulls, but it was a really close game. It really actually could have gone either way. It's at Orlando again, so Orlando has that advantage. Like I mentioned earlier, they're really good at home. They like playing at home, so they do their homework. I think that Orlando could really help themselves, and it's like a piggyback game, part 2. The Bulls see the Magic as the next team up. Should feel like a kind of a playoff series game in terms of them just seeing each other. Next we have the Raptors versus the Hawks. And this Raptors-Hawks game, I'm calling this the winning formula game of the night, because the Raptors were so impressive yesterday, but can they repeat that formula tonight against a very young and against a young Hawks team that has had a few losses that are ready to just explode. The Raptors-Hawks game should be really, really exciting. Probably the highlight game of the night, because Toronto's in 7th seed and Atlanta's 6th seed. So Toronto's on the hunt to get higher. This is the perfect team to take down. But the Hawks also are 6th place for a reason, and I think that they're just looking for a moment to break through, to find their winning formula, because I'm not sure that they've found that yet. But it's a home game, so if they do their homework, it's the perfect place to reshape and restructure your team dynamic. So tonight is going to be probably the game to watch, the winning formula game of the night, Hawks versus the Raptors. Next, we have the Bucks versus the Cavs. They just played each other, so this is another rematch game. I think this is an identity check game for the Cavs. The Cavs have been very successful. They're currently number 9 in the East. They were a little bit higher, so I think that they want to be competitive with a team like the Bucks. And I think that in order to get to where they want to go, they've got to beat these teams. I wouldn't say that there's a huge risk in losing tonight, but it's a home game. The Cavs just really want to have a better showing than they did last time against the Bucks. All right, next we have the Spurs versus the Rockets, and this is going to be a wild, wild West game for the ages. San Antonio is currently in 8th place and Houston's in 10th. This is a game that's going to answer, which team is going to make a jump. I think it's going to show these teams how far they've grown so far in the season. Okay, next we have the Warriors versus the Mavericks, and this is another rematch game. They just played each other. Golden State is currently in 7th place on the West. They're in a good position. And I think that the simple question for tonight is, can Golden State duplicate their winning formula? I think that Golden State has been able to duplicate their winning formula for many, many, many years. But in this season, in this 2021 season, it's really a big question for the Warriors. And finally, we have the Grizzlies versus the Pelicans. Pelicans, welcome to the program. They have made it into the bubble at 12. And the Pelicans, New Orleans has worked so hard to get here. And I think they've been struggling. They've been getting these losses. They're so talented. New Orleans has been doing so well this season, and their record and their ranking doesn't really show that. And now I think they're finally, coming up, rising, but they've got a challenge and a test against Memphis, because Memphis has dropped all the way to 9. At one point earlier, Memphis was in the 5th place seed, and now they're back to 9 because of the Wild Wild West. And I think that the Grizzlies are really looking to set a new standard for themselves, because they're a really great team. But in this league, being a great team doesn't necessarily give you the winning formula. The Pelicans are new to the bubble, but they're gaining a lot of momentum, so they're very dangerous. Once you start rolling, it's really hard to stop those kind of teams. And I think that even though I really believe the Grizzlies to be a great team, this is still an identity check game for them, because they're going to have to be a very talented, young, determined, dangerous Pelicans team on the road. And, it's just not going to be an easy task. It's a Wild Wild West game. So this is a really big game for the Memphis Grizzlies tonight, just to see, what their identity is, if they can find their winning formula so that they can move forward in success. All right, that concludes our program today. There are so many exciting matchups tonight on this Saturday night, and we've got a lot to look forward to, and it will be very interesting to see which teams can find their winning formula. All right, thanks for watching. Make sure that you catch me tomorrow.